Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. Perspective is important when it comes to enjoying beer and understanding the industry. This episode features a panel comprised of directors of 3 state brewing guilds. We'll get into the show in just a moment, but first, Caleb Schwecke of Yakima Valley Hops is here. The company is a sponsor of this episode, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And we're talking about new experimental hops. This is always the big question among brewers, Caleb, and beer geeks alike. What's new in hops? And let's start off by talking about HBC 1134.
Absolutely. So 1134 from the Hop Breeding Company, that's HBC. So that really got a good showing at the Craft Brewers Conference this year, CBC. That was a ton of fun. Yeah, absolutely. And there were some really good beers brewed with 1134. But one of the reasons why I'm personally a fan of it is because it's a new age noble hop, if you want to call it that. It really has that classic, like European noble character, a little rose, a little pine, a little cedar, a little herbal elements, maybe some citrus stuff in there. But, you know, it's kind of like that Hallertau middle fruit with some Saaz in there, but a little bit higher oil content. So definitely more potent and aromatic. And then the alphas are up there as well. So it's really nice just because personally I'm drinking a lot of Pilsners and lagers right now. So especially in the summer months. But so, you know, seeing an awesome American noble style hop is awesome. I love it.
And Pils and lagers are where you're seeing this shine and excel in great ways.
Absolutely. That's kind of what it was bred for. So the hop breeder from John I. Haas at HBC, Michael Ferguson, he's a Pilsner drinker, just loves them. You know, the clearer the beer. So he's been trying to breed his own lager hop for himself, and this is it. So it's, you know, he's excited about it. It definitely shines in those lighter styles. There have been some brewers using it in IPAs because there is, you know, some good oil content to it. So the potency is up there, and then citrus, it offers some really good citrus too. So it kind of fits into a wide range of styles, but definitely targeting the Pilsners and lagers.
That's awesome. I mean, that's where I'm drinking these days. So brewers, get at it. Caleb, thanks so much. You're going to be back with me at the bottom of the show to talk more about another experimental hop, HBC 1019. But in the meantime, I'm going to encourage everyone to go visit yakimavalleyhops.com. There you can learn more about these 2 hops, 1134 and 1019, and everything else that the company has to offer. And as always, thanks to Yakima Valley Hops for supporting All About Beer. If you plan to be in Colorado in a few weeks for the Great American Beer Festival, you need to check out the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. It happens on Friday, September 22nd, and brings together 64 of America's best craft breweries, all for a great cause, the Pints for Prostates campaign. The beer list is incredible, packed with rare, exotic, and vintage beers you won't find anywhere else. These are legendary beers the breweries hold back just for the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. This is a bucket list event for both beer fans and for brewers. You can get a look at the beer list and find more information at pintsforprostates.org. All-inclusive tickets are just $200 and include unlimited beer samples, a great buffet lunch, t-shirt, tasting glass, and program. Money raised goes to the fight against prostate cancer, including a free health screening before the event. It's a simple blood test that checks for common health issues that might just save your life. That's the Denver Rare Beer Tasting, drinking beer and saving lives. We'll see you there on September 22nd. A reminder, please go visit allaboutbeer.com for original articles, reviews, news, insights, and podcasts. You can listen to shows like Beer Travelers, Brewer to Brewer, and the All About Beer podcast simply by searching All About Beer wherever you listen to shows. This show and all of the work we do, it's supported by you. Please go visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer. You can help keep the content fresh, and a few bucks goes a long way to fund writers, photographers, creators, and editors. And if you'd like to learn more about advertising on this show or any of the All About Beer podcasts or allaboutbeer.com, please go visit info@allaboutbeer.com. It's amazing how much has changed in the beer industry in 10 years. We've seen the rise of the Hazy IPA, while the number of operating breweries has exploded. Trends have come and gone, and mergers and closures dot the landscape. Perspective helps us appreciate where we are and where we can go by examining where we've been. Today, three state Brewers Guild directors, Rob Fullmer of Arizona, Mary MacDonald of Ohio, and Paul Leone of New York, are all here for a chat about what's happening in their states and what it means for beer in general. All three are celebrating a decade on the job. And with that time comes, yes, perspective. Here's our conversation. Welcome to the three of you. Thanks for being here. And admittedly, in leading up to this conversation, I've had Nat King Cole playing in the back of my mind. Don't get around much anymore. And since COVID, I just haven't been out and about in the way that I would like to, or I would have been in the past. Paul, I had to miss your convention and your gathering earlier this year because I had something that was COVID adjacent, but that was not actually COVID. Rob, I haven't been to your state since before COVID, January of 2020. And Mary, I don't know the last time I was in Ohio. So just before we get into the larger conversation, I wonder if each of you can kind of give me a little bit of the ground's eye view of what's happening beer wise in your particular state. And Mary, I'll start with you.
Sure. I started September 3rd, 2013. It was the day after Labor Day, so I remember distinctly. At the time, there were 58 breweries in Ohio. They had just created an A1C license, which before that, it was just an A license. All brewers used it, and they specifically designated the A1C. They dropped the price on it to $1,000 from $4,000. They could have a tap room with it, and they could self-distribute up to 1 million barrels of beer. And so while the craft brewing industry was just starting to grow, that really put us like in a really good place in Ohio, because the best way to grow your business is to sell your beer by the pint over your bar. And you could do that now in Ohio, and you can self-distribute and get to know accounts. So as of today, there are 433 craft breweries in Ohio. So wow. That's an astronomical jump from the 58 that were there when I started. And I was like, you're doing a great job. Like, that has nothing to do with me. That's all the chutzpah of the Ohio craft brewers, but I'm pleased to help them grow along the way. We usually have about 50 to 70 breweries in planning. That's still kind of the case. We do an economic impact study every 2 years. And so we happened to do in 2020. And so we got to see the direct impact of the pandemic on the breweries, because previously we had $967 million in economic impact, and the pandemic dropped that down to $880 million. But as of 2022, we're back up to $1.27 billion in economic impact.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's exciting. We
see. I need to get to Ohio. Okay,
right. Yeah. So, John, January 16th through 18th, the Glass City Center in Toledo, because who doesn't want to go to Northwest Ohio in January? But standing invite.
That's our
next conference.
That's the next conference.
Yeah, I'll give you a speaking spot. It'll be lots of fun. It'll just be cold.
Sure. I mean, January in Phoenix sounds a little bit nicer. Sure. Perhaps, Rob, what's going on with your state these days?
Oh, well, I didn't know if we were doing it top to bottom. And also, I'm a little disappointed that Unforgettable wasn't what you thought of when it comes to having a call with the three of us.
So, in every way. Yeah.
But I'll just kind of follow a little bit of Mary's structure. I started in November of 2013. And at the time, they told me I was the 13th full-time director. So a lot of these organizations across the United States were run by a board and part-time involvement. You could sort of tell by the unevenness of our efforts at the legislature. We started out with probably 30, but nominally 15 or 20 breweries that were really super active when I started. And I think we're at 140 locations. It's the case. Every state likes to say they're different. I think we are definitely different because we span, from 8,000 feet all the way down to ground zero, and the temperature swings are it's going to be 118 today, but in northern Arizona it's going to be closer to 85. So we have 4 seasons, and I think we have basically the size, a city the size of Los Angeles in square miles, Philadelphia and population, and then a whole host of towns that are too tiny to support a single brewery. So it's very feast or famine, boom town kind of thing here in Arizona. But I was tasked immediately with getting our breweries to be able to grow beyond 40,000 barrels. And I think our laws were such that they opened up a lot of different models, and the most successful model wasn't necessarily packaging. So Arizona's always had an embarrassment of riches in terms of getting other products from other places. So on the downside, I think that kind of shut us out of the package market early. But on the good side is I think it really upped everyone's game. I mean, you can't pretend to put out beers if you have to compete against San Diego and Colorado and Oregon right now. So but we've slowly chipped away at small things, and we've worked cooperatively with a lot of people who could sometimes be our enemies. And I think we have some of the best laws in the country right now for a brewery. There's no restrictions on a lot of what you can do. So I think doing business here in Arizona as a brewery is going to be great, despite the flatness that we're seeing nationally.
Paul, what's going on in New York?
A lot. Yeah, I was hired in June of 2013. After 10 years of a board-run association, they by the time they needed an executive director, franchise law was done, farm brewing license was created. Like, they had done a lot legislatively. So my lift wasn't as heavy coming into this job, but I had 9 interviews in order to have it. They wanted to make sure they had the right person. And we had 135 breweries in New York State in 2013, and I knew everyone, and it was awesome. And now there are 538 breweries in New York State, and there are a lot of people to know. So the job has grown, the state has grown, and it's been a heck of a ride, heck of a 10 years. And I don't, maybe we'll get into it later, but I don't think I would be here today without the other 2 folks that are on this right now. I mean, it's been a ride for sure, but New York State has been growing tremendously, and facing the same issues every other state is, just in a larger scale.
So what are the issues that you feel you're facing right now, Paul? And then I'll throw that same question to Mary, because it sounds like there's been a lot of momentum in all of your states. And I think in most states around the country, Jersey being the exception right now, where there is, good momentum, there's growth. By and large, it seems towns and state governments want to work with breweries. So what are the challenges as we are here at the halfway point of 2023 that are on your desk right now, on your horizon, Paul?
I think a lot of breweries are seeing, sales being flat, in the post-COVID world, access to market, really just trying to, after that tremendous wave of growth, and Bart Watson has talked a lot about this, which is really unsustainable. We're now kind of, we're not seeing as much growth anymore. And with RTDs and other options and changing drinking habits and all of those things, you find a lot of breweries trying to figure out who they are and what who they need to be and what they need to do and how they need to adjust to an ever-changing world in the alcohol world. And so, a lot of breweries are expanding in New York State, opening other locations, and others are wanting to close and wanting to sell. And it just seems like more of a, it's a business now, right? It's not the shiny new toy anymore. And I feel like, in the craft beer world, it's not enough anymore for people to be a brewery just to serve your beer and have a bag of chips anymore. I think, people want more options when they walk into a brewery. They want more of an experiential a visit when they go to a brewery. So that's kind of what we're seeing here in New York right now, and trying to help breweries, through that.
Mary, what about for you right now?
Yeah, I think everything Paul said is true. We already have self-distribution in Ohio. We have direct-to-consumer shipping in Ohio. So what we're focusing on right now is franchise law. And in Ohio, at least, it was passed in 1974 when there were close to 200 wholesalers in Ohio and 116 breweries in the entire United States. And when we did attempt to have talks with our wholesalers to pass some franchise law reform and get an exemption for smaller craft brewers. But after about 18 months, those talks just stalled because we were at complete opposite ends of the spectrum on what we thought was reasonable in terms of accommodating smaller breweries. So right now we're about to drop legislation next week, hopefully, that would exempt brewers under 250,000 barrels from franchise law. Basically, if you brew fewer than 250,000 barrels, franchise law no longer applies to you. You can negotiate your own contract with the wholesaler under regular business contract law. I would say back to what business, we see more breweries opening tap rooms, additional tap rooms to pursue growth. And you can still do that pretty freely in Ohio. So that's where we're at, John.
Okay. Rob, what about you? What's on your desk that needs addressing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think because our laws are different and our evolution and our brewery growth has been on different timelines, even though that we see consumers making different choices. I think obviously craft beer has ushered in the sort of the flavor profile, and now it's more easily replicated by RTDs and giant corporations have the ability to put out similar tasting products at a much reduced rate and using that marketing against us. I think, for us, I think the days of opening a tap room and, people coming in just for that new experience are gone in a lot of cases. I think there's still some underserved areas where you can sort of carve out a niche in our state, but I think it's time for us to get back to hospitality. I think it's time for us to, as Paul and I mentioned, providing full service, understanding your customers. And, I think in our state, because of the pandemic and because of the shift towards, hey, anyone can and should be packaging beer right now, I think we got to get back to reality on that. I think that will put a lot of businesses under, because I think the consumers want that, but because they want that doesn't mean you have to provide it everywhere in the state. I think our strongest point is bringing people back to our tap rooms, being part of we're a tourism state, embracing that and understanding that regular customers are great, but if you can tap into people traveling, to Arizona as a destination, you can really sell a lot of beer and put Arizona on a different level when it comes to that kind of thing. I think we do everything that all the great states do. It's just we're a little bit more spread out. So we should embrace all the parts of our state and sort of fold into that legend of Arizona, that mystique. But I think our members, our breweries, we need to. I think the time of bootstrapping all of your business functions is over. Stop watching YouTube videos, start hiring people, making the investments in people. But that's a tough thing as a director to say that everyone's going to do it just because it makes sense to a few of us, right? So
yeah,
that's the sort of struggle that we all have is we've been talking about this flatness for, I went and visited, I went to Mary's conference and Paul was there. That was one of Bart's talks. When was that, Mary?
Ohio in January.
Yeah. So, but we saw that anecdotally, months before. And so the fact that this Slate story is coming out now, I think, right. It's kind of funny to us.
Okay. I don't know the Slate story. I haven't seen
it. Just that the beer industry is flat.
Okay. So Paul started and then Rob, you've sort of continued on with it. And I'm often curious about this, right? Because when you take the industry as a whole, I understand why those larger numbers are important. But the thing that I have thoroughly enjoyed in the last 10 or so years is how many breweries there are and the chance to visit different breweries, either when traveling or when I'm closer to home. And I'm not thinking about the larger industry when I walk into a small brewery. I'm not really thinking about what Bud Light is doing. I'm not thinking about, how Firestone Walker is cranking out 805 or anything else like that. I'm looking for that entrepreneurial, that brewer spirit, that sort of excitement that I think existed 10 years ago when everybody knew each other. And I wonder how important individual brewery growth is versus what it means for the fuller industry. And I don't know if I'm articulating this the right way, but are small brewers caring too much about what's happening outside of their walls and not focusing enough on what's happening inside of them?
I don't think
sort of
so.
Rob's point on hospitality.
I think they have to. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be conscious of the fact that ingredient prices keep rising, right? Because we're used to $6 to $8, pints, and those prices keep creeping up. My experience is people who enter the craft brewing industry still have so much passion and enthusiasm and are excited to be here. And the people who have been in the industry are buoyed by that enthusiasm and want to help. And I think that's part of the reason the guilds exist and continue to thrive is we create that platform, the meetings, the conferences, the opportunities for them to interact and engage with one another and remind ourselves of what makes this industry great, which is the collaboration and the interwovenness of the breweries, and to hopefully sustain that, right? When we had 58 breweries, I too knew every brewery in the state. I usually at least try to know the names of the people who are opening the breweries, and then go out and try to meet them when possible. It's so much harder in a state any of our size when there's now 400 and some of them to try to interact with.
Yeah.
And I would just say, I'm glad you're not thinking about that when you walk in those places, because that's what they're supposed to be good at, and that's what they should be focusing on. But if you look at a state like in Arizona, we're not going to be an industry volume leader. We're not adjacent to manufacturing. We do have a role in supplying part of California. Some people have found, like White Claw, a competitive advantage locating here. So we really have to embrace, again, what our state can be good at. And that should be hospitality. That should be creating those experiences. But I think it's a mix. Some people in our industry in Arizona follow the trades and to get an understanding of what's going on. And a lot of that stuff doesn't materialize at the local taproom level, but some of it does. So I think it's our job to keep everybody informed and not cry wolf too much, but really underscore what the opportunities are as we see them, because we see we have insight into the national picture. We have examples in every state of similarities between our businesses, and we, I have a deputy director. We put a lot of miles talking to people face to face because no one reads email anymore. So we're trying to build that vibe that way.
There's a guild hashtag for that too. Right, Paul?
Yes, there is. There is actually. So I'll add this, and maybe I'm in the minority, John, and in this thought, but I think the rash of shitty clickbait articles, doomsday articles that come out don't help lately.
Sure.
There are a lot of reputable beer writers out there, and there are, and some of these articles do have merit. I mean, there's some truth in them, but they're thrown out into the ether as if this is the blanketed opinion and this is the way that it is. And it really paints a dark picture of the industry right now. And I think it's unfair. And I don't think it's true. Sure, there's issues in the industry and it's not what it once was. But when, I don't know, I just think a lot of brewers read these things and you read response on social media. It's like, The brewing industry is dying. Everything is bad. Beer festivals, the latest one. Beer festivals are the doomsday of the beer festivals. Sure,
I saw that one in Axios. Yeah,
yeah, and we as a group had a whole sidebar conversation on our private Facebook group about this, and just kind of polling each other of, okay, well, are yours dying? Are yours dying? And it's true. I canceled an event this year. I postponed. I canceled it because we just kind of weren't ready for a variety of reasons. But we've got beer festivals that sell out every year. I've got 2 that are growing every year. So it was this blanketed, and I don't know how many notices that I got, even affected my board at one point going, yeah, geez, maybe we shouldn't do beer festivals anymore. And so there's certainly a debate to be had with that article for sure. But at the same time, the feeling that I got and the messaging that I was getting was, oh, we've got to stop doing beer festivals because they're all dying. And that just pisses me off, and it really affects the attitude of people that are reading it. And I'm just tired of this doomsday thing. The brewing industry is not dying, and the bubble is not bursting, right? It's a business now, and the growth isn't there anymore, but it doesn't mean that it's dying. And maybe I'm in the minority of feeling that way. I just can gauge from my state, but talking to Rob and Mary and a whole bunch of other folks around the country, I don't know of everybody saying, well, geez, we're closing at an epic rate now, or we're going down the tubes. Now, with that, I will say, just like the brewing industry, the guilds, it was that the BA had a hope of having, 51 guild directors around the country, right, including DC. And there are guilds that are collapsing now, right? So it's not all rosy. I can admit that, right? There are not 51 guild directors out there. There are some that are like, there are states that don't have any directors at all. So it is a little scary out there, but I just hate these dumbass like clickbait articles lately, trying to show like the industry is dying. Get out. Yeah, and that affects the people. You're
going to get I will defend journalism all day long. You're going to get zero pushback from me on what you just said, because that stuff that's coming out is by and large not rooted in reality.
2 years into my tenure, we hit 100 breweries in Ohio, and I got the question about, oh my God, are we at the top of the bubble? And then we hit, 2 years later, we hit 200 breweries, and I got the same question. Mm-hmm. And I think my exasperation with journalists at that point, they got not to ask the question again. Now that we're at 4, they didn't ask me 300, they didn't ask me at 400. I believe there's potential for Ohio to hit 500 breweries. We've got breweries in, I think, 77 out of our 88 counties. But there's so many small towns in Ohio that don't have breweries, and they help revitalize buildings. They help bring traffic back to, downtowns. I think there's still room for growth. To Paul's point, we're a business now. And to Rob's point, now you got to, you have to run a business. It's not just the fun of making beer. You need an accountant. You might need a lawyer. There's all these, you might need an HR person depending on your size. It's time to treat this like a full business that you intend to hopefully have your kids inherit someday.
Sorry, go ahead.
As it pertains to festivals and actually the guilds, I think they're kind of related. There's a scale, an intentionality, a focus that we all have to go through. And when you came to our Strong Beer Festival, it was February, by the way, but January, February.
Sorry, my apologies.
No worries. I think I told you 4 years ago, it was approaching 10,000, but we're kind of settling in at 6,000 to 7,000. And we've held there, but we've known that was happening, and we've seen the trends, and we made revenue other ways. We actually increased revenue. And honestly, if you can't scale up to the next, I'll use a brewery example. If you can't scale up to the next tank, you don't make more beer. You just, deal with the equipment you have until you can afford to take that next big step in production. So, a lot of our festivals probably could have been downsized a little bit to retain the experience and go back to, just taking care of the people that show up. We started a new festival in Flagstaff, and we were running into some issues with permitting. And I literally just said, listen, if it's a permitting issue, we're doing this festival for free, because we need to establish a festival in Northern Arizona. And so, obviously revenue is a component, but another component to doing a festival in another part of the state is to build relationships with businesses and your members in another part of the state, and have a different type of relationship. So that's the intentionality. The focus as it pertains to guilds is like, maybe there are some. I think 100 is right where I feel comfortable having 2 people, 100 breweries, 140 locations. But maybe when I step down and my deputy director takes over, maybe he'll decide that he can do it himself, and he's got a different strategy, and maybe he can make a little bit more money than both of us combined in terms of personal salary. I don't know, but 100 seems to be about the spot where you can really keep a single position. But I think 250 is a good sweet spot, and I'm painting with a big brush here because you can have a bunch of tiny breweries and they don't really make a lot to your bottom line. But so I think that like it's possible that some states would, based on the realities of today, can't have a full-time director like the BA envisioned, and so there has to be a strategy to maybe combine resources or something like that. But we managed during the growth, and now we have to manage during maybe more flat periods or declines. I talk to people who they're you can tell that they're looking to see what their options are, and like sometimes the best advice I could give them is like, maybe this isn't what you envisioned it was, and maybe it's time that you start making a strategy to get out, either sell or partner with somebody or expand. I don't know about you guys. I can't tell you how many times people, like, they look like they're going to expand and all of a sudden they just get out. So I think there's a lot of people in that position, and that's not bad if everyone can exit the industry the way they want, the way they want to on their own terms. I think I'm not seeing, like Paul said, I'm not seeing wholesale get out of the industry things going on right now.
No, and to that point, and I want to come back to festivals in a second, though, is, and I agree. I've used the term bubble in the past, and I was using it without fully being cognizant of it, and I haven't for years, I hope. But the closures that we're seeing now, as best I can tell by and large when I have conversations afterwards, are breweries that were not putting the effort in a fully meaningful way. And sometimes it was, they just didn't know how to run a business, or other times it was just poor quality beer. And when you have 10,000 breweries in the country and you're asking a premium for the product, you can go across the street for a better pint, and the place that's making the lesser pint is just going to suffer. It's the same thing with a pizza place or a burger place or anything else like that business in the whole thing. I don't know if you're all seeing that as well, of some of the closures that have happened, not a bubble, but just, some folks who maybe were not fully prepared to be in a competitive industry. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, I do these regional meetings around the state every fall, and I remember being in Long Island, and Long Island brewers have no problem telling you what's on their mind ever. And so, like, I think we're talking about all these slate of regulations and the new things and all these things they had to follow, and I just and I heard one of the brewers in the back go, "God damn it, I just want to make beer." And it sort of summed it up in a way, like, right, it's a business. It is a business, and passion will only take you so far, and and you have to run it. And I think there are some folks that got into this for all the right reasons. And, maybe it's just got to the point where some of them are like, they're just tired, right? They're just tired. It's not what I thought it would be. And I don't want to do this anymore. And to me, that's natural, I would think, in any business, right? But I don't know. I just think that the people that we're seeing getting out just, are just, maybe their heart's not in it anymore. The business is hard. They're not making the revenue. That's kind of what we're seeing for the most part.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list. We've had 6 breweries close this year. One of them sold to someone else. One of them, basically similar. I think actually two of them sold to someone else. One of them moved and changed locations and grew, but they still closed the old brewery. So I think we're still on a good pace for openings versus closings. But yes, I think if you start to lack the passion and you have the opportunity to sell, that's definitely something our brewers are taking advantage of right now.
I wonder though, I'm thinking back like 10 years ago to something like the Craft Brewers Conference, the national one that would be put on, and you would hear these, we're going to take on the big guys. There's all this talk about legacy planning, places that have been open 3 to 5 years, 10 years, already talking about, their infant children that they're pushing around the expo floor and strollers, being like, one day this is all going to be hers, and that kind of thing. And there was this sort of electricity around building legacy businesses. And I don't hear that conversation in 2023 like I did in 2013. And I wonder for the next, I think there's mistakes that were made at the time. Certainly some of the things I remember at one of those conferences, and I've told this story before, Paul Gatza, the president or the director of the BA, standing in front of the room and saying, if beer quality is not the first thing on your mind when it comes to your business, get out of this room right now. And folks laughed. They thought it was a joke. And I was stunned by that. And I remember Garrett Oliver saying something similar at the Florida Brewers Guild a couple of years ago and also being laughed at. And I think that, it might have saved some closures if people were thinking about quality, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. But the messages of 10 years ago of you're going to be in this forever, you're going to pass this on, we're going to take on the big players. A lot of that isn't bearing out these days. What's the messaging now in 2023 to the members for the future or even just the present? Is it treat it like a business? Is there something deeper to it? Sort of a jump ball.
I don't recall my people ever being like, we're going to take on the big guys, right? And
well, that was always more of the national BA, but yeah.
I mean, I definitely have brewers who are like, we're fighting franchise law because as one of my brewers, like, I don't want my kid to take over my business in 10 to 15 years and then be like, Dad, why didn't you fix this? You knew it was a mess, right? So you take care of it and then leave it in a better place to your kids. I think
so. Legacy planning is still being discussed.
I think
legacy.
So.
Okay.
If you're a big enough brewery, certainly. If you're right, I mean, is the person who's got a little tap room in a small town thinking about what they're going to do when they're ready to retire in 10, 20, depending on the age you got into this business years? I don't know that that's the case, but if you're someone of a larger brewery size, I think that has to be a consideration. I think somebody talked about hospitality, providing a good experience. Those are definitely the messages, again, because there is more competition now, right? We went from 58 breweries to 430, a lot of them in the same cities and neighborhoods. You have to be conscious of your competition, which is anybody who sells alcohol. And so I think having that experiential opportunity and making sure that you have outstanding customer service and outstanding quality beer, right? You just can't get by with bad beer anymore because consumers are educated and they know what beer should taste like.
The fact that there's a conversation like this across the country about businesses is something that we just have to step outside of ourselves and understand that's fairly unique. I out here in the West, in the 1950s and 60s, Chinese immigrants opened up Americanized Chinese places all across the West, Los Angeles. And the whole point of it was to not turn this over to their kids. It was to make money and send their kids off to be doctors and lawyers. And I think what sometimes I see in this industry is when things get tough, people put their heads down and they don't remember what this industry can provide. And that's the ability to call your competitor up and commiserate and strategize and share information. It's the anti, 99% asshole free thing. That's not what it was about. It was about that conversation being able to, I mean, they don't have a national dry cleaners festival. They don't sit in a room and talk about
They
dry
might. Come
cleaning.
on.
I'd love to go to that festival with that conference with you, John. But it's really about the collaborative nature of this industry. Like the other trade organizations don't hire, they don't bring anybody in except the owners. The distributors don't bring in warehouse guys together to talk about different warehouse techniques. That's what we're good at. That's the culture that we built, and the culture drove most of the marketing during that time. I wish I could get into like the Doug Velicky investment curve if you're with that. I mean, we all got into this. Yeah. We all got in this on the upswing, and we all got in this, you know, when the stories you told, we were like, okay, there's a future here. The future is infinite. You know, then we sort of had all kinds of dilution and we got into COVID, and now we're kind of on the downswing business wise and a lot of people emotionally, resource wise. But somebody who's not us is going to see what the opportunity is and say, I'm going to invest in this because I'm coming in at this level and I have no idea what you guys are talking about, the good old days, but this is what I see. And we just have to figure out how that fits into, you know, our plans to keep our organizations moving forward, you know, in the next decade.
Nobody had worldwide pandemic on their bingo card when I started this job.
Sure. No, of course.
9.75 years ago, right? And I'm so impressed with how resilient our businesses were and how creative they were in coming up with ways to support their employees and make it through the pandemic. And honestly, we saw a lot fewer closures than I expected post-pandemic. And I think we'll still be coming off the tail of that for the next year or two. But we were incredibly resilient during the pandemic. And a lot of that is the community, right? Our breweries are so much a part of their communities that their community wanted to support them and keep them so that they could go back to them when we pulled ourselves out of the pandemic.
Really quick. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, John.
Paul. No. Mine is not as interesting as yours, please.
Are you sure? Oh, no, because I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You know, the message to our breweries, you know, quality shouldn't even be brought up anymore. They should know better at this point. But even though, you know, you can't make bad beer and expect to survive. But it is adapt. You need to adapt it in this beverage alcohol world. Because it's ever evolving, you know, now we're going to be competing with hard Mountain Dew and all of that other stuff. You know, and I walk
made by Boston Beer, but yes.
Yes, but you know, but it's a competitor, right? There's one more option for the consumer out there, and so you know, I mean, little things like, believe it or not, like in New York, I've talked to breweries, and those that have the slushy machines. And then might use like farm, you know, New York State farm distillers and make these fruity cocktails, make $1 gazillion on selling those slushies, right? Yeah. And I try to say, you know, look at, you know, you do you with your beer and all of that, but if you're looking for a few extra dollars of revenue, maybe you ought to throw in one of those slushy machines. You know, maybe you ought to have some NA options from that are available out there. You know, I mean, it's like think of more beverage alcohol than just beer. You know, again, it's their business. They can do what they want. But if they're not making their payments or they're struggling, you know, making revenue, then maybe you need to adapt to the new culture. We still don't know what the 21-year-olds, you know, nobody's coming in kind of like when we were younger or when I was younger, you know, that beer was it, man. We loved beer. I think beer is something that people they kind of ease into, but we don't know what the new generation is going to drink when they have access. You know, the first things they're drinking is hard Mountain Dew, and others, right? You know, and so you got to compete with that, and you got to think about that in your business.
One of the OG Ohio breweries put in a slushy machine, and I happened to be sitting at the bar, the tap room that day, like faux instructing them on which was the best placement. And I think Paul's right. You need to be able to adapt. And if our oldest breweries are like, okay, we recognize that there's only so many beer customers out here, but I'm going to come in with a party of 10. Some of those people aren't going to drink beer at all. How can we best serve them in all honesty?
Which was not a conversation that was happening 10 years ago.
No.
It's really understanding who your customers are and filling your tap rooms and again, hospitality.
Rob, I'm going to point out that the National Cleaners Association is a professional trade association dedicated to the welfare of well-groomed consumers and professional cleaners and the suppliers who serve them.
That's
over 75 years old, and they've been at the vanguard of education, research, and information distribution concerning garment and household fabric care.
Outstanding journalism, John Hall.
Aren't old dry cleaners also usually like brownfield sites too, like the chemicals?
or
like
well on their way to become brownfield sites. Yeah. They have virtual events, it looks like.
Oh, I know what my side hustle is going to be now. Thanks.
There's an association.
By the way, during the pandemic, I had all my stuff dry cleaned because I was like, these guys need to stay in business. I have business stuff that I don't get to wear very often. So I went through all of it, got it dry cleaned.
It is a virtual trade show, apparently. November 4th and 5th this year. Their virtual text care trade show. I don't know how
not nearly as exciting as our trade shows, which involve beer.
Right.
Yeah,
that is true.
I feel like if they did this thing in person, it would just be free huffs of the cleaning solution, which is which is fine.
You probably drink more than us.
Just nude people in plastic bags. Just
all right. Well, now it's getting weird.
Leave it to Rob to make it weird.
More in a moment, but first, a note from this episode's sponsors. Looking for an easy hop sourcing experience? Yakima Valley Hops offers the finest quality hops from right here in our valley and premium growing regions around the world. Get the hops you need when you need them with ultra-fast shipping and awesome customer service. With a full line of liquid hop products and all your favorite varieties, no contracts are needed to brew with the best. Shop now at yakimavalleyhops.com. That's YAKIMA valleyhops.com. If you plan to be in Colorado in a few weeks for the Great American Beer Festival, you need to check out the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. It happens on Friday, September 22nd, and brings together 64 of America's best craft breweries, all for a great cause, the Pints for Prostates campaign. The beer list is incredible, packed with rare, exotic, and vintage beers you won't find anywhere else. These are legendary beers the breweries hold back just for the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. This is a bucket list event for both beer fans and for brewers. You can get a look at the beer list and find more information at pintsforprostates.org. All-inclusive tickets are just $200 and include unlimited beer samples, a great buffet lunch, t-shirt, tasting glass, and program. Money raised goes to the fight against prostate cancer, including a free health screening before the event. It's a simple blood test that checks for common health issues that might just save your life. That's the Denver Rare Beer Tasting, drinking beer and saving lives. We'll see you there on September 22nd. And now back to the conversation. I keep coming back to where we were 10 years ago, and we brought up the pandemic now. We've talked about when times get tough, Rob, you said sort of putting the head down. And one of the things that I've been really buoyed by the local conferences that I've gone to, or the state conferences that I've gone to in the last 2 years or so, or reading over the agenda, is the focus on mental health, which 10 years ago, it was walk it off, or it's tough, get used to it, that kind of thing. And I know it's being addressed more and more, mental health, and then social issues and diversity and inclusion issues. The guilds, I feel, have really been leading that charge because you have closer access to your members. And I know all of your states have been have really been working hard at this. I wonder, those are three very different things, of mental health and diversity and inclusion and social issues and all of that. But I wonder, and this is sort of, again, a jump ball for anybody who wants to jump in, of what that evolution has been like, and if there has been any sort of tangible impact that you all have been able to see.
That's a I mean, it's a very big question.
Yes.
And I will say this, on top of, so you talked about mental health and DEI and all of those things, that is, an issue in every industry. Add alcohol to it, right? With ours,
Right.
that's a whole other level of things, right? So that's something that I think that, we as an industry talk about, when we're out, usually people that are struggling tend to drink more, and think that that's the pathway out. So we do have those conversations for sure, amongst the brewers in the state. I know they talk about it. We have them, we have, seminars about it at our conference. But I think from a mental health standpoint, in this industry is the biggest problem with this industry. And I'll say this for us too, even the guild directors, is that, you really could never stop working. I feel like it's a 7-day-a-week job, and even for us guild directors, but especially breweries, right? They're always working, they're always struggling, they're always hustling, they're doing everything that they can. And then they add alcohol on top of that. So it's an extra struggle, I think, a lot for mental health issues. And that's why I think you might see some people tapping out. They're like, I just can't do this to myself anymore. And I've seen that happen too. And it's, applause. Good for you.
Oh yeah.
Because, if that's what you need to do. We had an employee who worked with us for 5 years. And she called me one day and said, I can't do this anymore. It's just too hard. And I totally understood. I said, you're right. Then you shouldn't do it anymore. And so I know that's pretty common in a lot of spaces. And I've seen a lot of great seminars about it. And I'm glad it's a conversation that's happening and that it needs to happen from a mental health standpoint, especially adding alcohol on top of it, right? It's kind of like a double whammy.
I'll just add on the top of this, a different layer of this is it brings up what a guild is responsible for and what a guild can accomplish in some of these areas, because there's always going to be somebody who says, hey, I just want you to represent me at the legislature, or I would just like you to market us more. And, getting to know these people and understanding what we see as problems. And, it is the things that you mentioned. We're human beings and we want to help people to the best we can. And, sometimes that means putting out statements as, hey, this is what our industry should do. These are the programs that we're going to recommend. These are the platforms that we're going to put out to the public. But it puts everyone in a position where, well, if someone challenges you on that, I'll use sexual harassment as one of the issues. Like, you say that this is what your businesses should be doing. You say these are the programs that I heard about this brewery and they did this. Are you going to kick them out? And, I think we're all past that controversy that because I think our first inclination as an industry is to say, how can we provide resources to that business to fix that? Like, we can't fix the individual problem that happened in the past, but how can we convince them that they need to figure this out, both legally, structurally? Maybe some people in that company need to be taken out of the public eye, or just taken out, period.
Sure.
That kind of thing. But those things are tough. We
appeal to the public.
We appeal to the public, and then, ultimately on all these issues, we will let individuals of the public down because we didn't do enough. And that's kind of where, I think we grind our teeth at night, because we want the best for everybody in this industry, both consumers and people who work for these breweries, but it's an impossible task. And I think after like 2 years after the pandemic and during the pandemic, I'm resigned to, I'm comfortable in what I think we can accomplish. That may not suit everybody's needs, but we will always have those messages out there. We will always provide resources to be better. But I'm not going to be put in the position where a brewery did something bad, or somebody at a brewery did something bad, so therefore we're not doing our job.
Well, there's only so much that guilds or associations can do, whether it comes to bylaws or boards or whatever. And I imagine that there is frustration on behalf of folks, who want organizations to do more, but don't always know the full scope of responsibilities or ramifications that a guild or an association can actually levy.
Right. Our teeth are like, well, we can make you not be part of the guild. If you've done something so offensive, if you've broken our code of conduct and we've investigated and gone through that, and you agree or you disagree, but we've determined that you've broken the code of conduct egregiously enough, the worst thing we can do is revoke your membership to the guild. And at the end of the day, does that have a lot of teeth? Because we're not going to go out and publicly declare that we revoke their membership to the guild.
Sure.
But it's what we can do, right? And is it our responsibility to do that? My organization has decided that it is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't fix the problem. So to Rob's point, we try to provide as many resources as possible. And again, all of us started 10 years ago when there was a fraction of the number of breweries that exist today.
Yeah.
And so as those breweries have grown and face their growing pains, the guilds are growing and facing their growing pains. And I think every guild leader is acutely aware of the issue of burnout and mental health, because most of us started as a single employee and then grew to hopefully add one or two or more employees. But even so, Rob has 2. I just now have 3. Paul, what are you at? 4?
We have 4.
That's still an incredibly small staff who's responsible for everything related to the guild in the state.
Yeah. So, no, it's true.
Can of worms, John.
No, and that's, but I think this is starting to illustrate, though, just not the impossible task, but the mountain that you all are climbing on a daily basis.
Well, before you get, this is why it's so important that we get together virtually or in person. And this is what Paul alluded to, like it not being here. Like if I didn't have someone to have a water cooler moment or literally just, hey man, you just need to listen to me for like 10 minutes. And like, there's no resolution. It's just, there's no one else to talk to about
there's commiseration because you inherently understand what the other person's going through, even though you haven't been through that exact same situation.
But there's a possibility you might. Yeah,
you've seen us, John. Like we, as guild directors, like there's for us, even 10 years ago, there was only maybe a handful of directors. Scott Graham, who is in Michigan, I might be the senior director right now. Tom McCormick retired, from the job in California, and so. We don't have a playbook, right? There was no us before us, really. And so we're making it up as we go too, sometimes, and as a group of directors, and I include all the great people that work for guilds, not just the EDs, we really rely on each other heavily for our own mental health. Am I doing this right? Am I not? A lot of us sit home alone in our offices all day answering emails and things and making critical decisions. And we don't know if we're doing things right. We're just doing the best we can and trying to figure this out. I kind of think we're like first gen in a lot of ways, right? So we rely on each other for our own mental health. That is for sure.
Also, I highly recommend a sabbatical. I got 2 months off last summer. It was supposed to be the summer of 2020, but we all know how that turned out. And I've convinced my board, I think we have to vote at the next one, that it's just going to be part of our vacation policy. If you work for the OCBA for 5 years, in your 5th year, you get a sabbatical, or every 5 years, you get a sabbatical, because there's just so much pressure on the regular basis that you need to be able to hit the reset button at least every couple of years. I guess that's technically more every few years, but
just take a vacation. That's what I do.
I take a micro sabbatical.
Yeah, I go on vacation and I work because people don't I might have an out of office reply, but they have they text me, they message me, all of those things. It just never stops. And I'm not complaining because this is the greatest job I've ever had. It's the coolest industry in the world with the greatest people, in my opinion. But it can get a little overwhelming.
So when I go,
Paul, I
go
want you
on
to set some
vacation-
boundaries. Come on, man.
I know I need to.
When I go on vacation, if I go to someone else's event, I have my festival eyes on. I'm always looking for like opportunities. When I went to Iowa, I found myself at Confluence Brewing Company, and I kind of looked around, and I'm like, I just asked somebody like, "Hey, how long you been here?" I'm like, "Oh, 1 year after they opened, I started." I said, "I can tell this brewery's got its shit together." I look at a lot of breweries, and I see the telltales, and they ended up winning like a couple World Beer Cup medals, and like it all made sense. So like I never turned that off.
I like Confluence right on the bike path there. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my idea of not working, but also enjoying the people in industry I love. Right, that's what I do.
Yeah,
that's my micro sabbatical.
Micro sabbatical. Sorry, Paul, were you going to jump in there?
No, I didn't know how many more questions you have, but I have one for you. Because you
I like that you think that I prepare with questions. I'm just just lobbing shit out there right now. But yeah,
and we're lobbing it back. So it's like it's a good volley. But I think for a guy like you, and I know you don't. You're not a guy that boasts about yourself, but you are one of the most knowledgeable and most respected beer guys, journalists. I know we all think the world of you. You come and speak at our conferences and things, and you are a respected voice. So I would ask you, with all of your knowledge, how have the last 10 years changed, in your opinion?
I can't get a handle on it.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't anymore. And with so much choice out there, it's tough to cut through the noise sometimes to see, so that's what I guess from what I was saying before about, the numbers, like the national numbers and the flat and everything else like that. For me, it's always been about being on the ground. It's always been almost like Rob with the micro sabbaticals of sitting in a tap room, having the conversation with folks, of being able then to draw out what's happening in the larger industry, cultural wise, flavor wise, business wise, that kind of thing. And I can understand why there is worry among brewery owners these days and among, folks who make their livelihood off of beer, because there is just such confusion that exists. And so that's sort of the biggest thing. I think 10 years ago, there was this, goal. People were getting into it for a specific reason. And it was that passion. And it was that, you'd always have some outliers that would, be trying to do it for the wrong reasons. And I know that the passion is still there, but it just feels clouded by worry. And the pandemic, inflation, all of the other issues that have come up in the last couple of years, I think have gotten beer away from brewing, away from the beer itself. And I enjoy that, but I also sort of just miss, that cohesiveness that once existed.
10 years ago were simpler times, right?
Sure. It's simpler times all over the place.
Yeah. How many categories were at GABF at the time? How many beer styles have evolved in the last 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, we were barely talking about hazy 10 years ago. I mean, now it's sort of ruling the roost. I don't want to keep you all too much longer, but I'm curious about, thank you, by the way, Paul, for that. I don't know if that was intelligent or not, but
no, I think you have a very important voice and opinion. You've seen a whole lot of stuff in the last 10 years and beyond. And so just really your perspective is important in this conversation.
Absolutely.
The thing on the festival side of things, just to sort of tie that back, because it's the consumers that drive those numbers that cause places to be flat or down. And festivals were always for me, a great mini sabbatical to sort of see what people were gravitating towards, or what the next potential brewery on the national scale could be, or new flavors or new styles or things like that. And 10 years ago, we were seeing a lot of distributor fests, where it was getting rid of out of code beer in the baseball stadium parking lot kind of thing. And then more niche festivals started popping up of all IPA, all lager, seltzer, whatever. And then for a little while, it was breweries leading the charge with their invitationals. And Firestone is still doing theirs, but some of the others have come and gone. The constant in the last at least half decade has been the state guild fests, where the mission, and I know in other states going back further, but the mission being promote the members, remind the residents of the bounty that is around them. And when you read that Axios piece by John Frank, it does seem like there's doom and gloom. But for the ones that you all have put on, does it give you faith for the future?
John, for the record, he cherry picked the answers to that because Shawnee from Colorado told him that theirs was alive and well and selling out. And he just didn't include that because it didn't match his predetermined narrative.
That I can't speak. Yeah, I've known John for a long time. He's the other reporter that wears a bow tie, but
you wear it better.
Beer fests are ubiquitous nowadays, right? 10 years ago, 5 years ago, like everybody puts on a beer fest now, right? And so we've always had to distinguish ourselves and distinct, like, how are we different as a guild producing a beer festival than, say, the guy who comes in from LA and rents our science center and throws a beer festival that of course our breweries are going to go to and the distributors are going to go to because they get to sell beer and they get exposure, which exposure is much less of a thing now. But our Winter Warmer Festival in Cleveland sells out and has every year for the last 5 years and did again this year. And I imagine will again the year after that because it's limited. We can only sell like 1,500 tickets to it because of the size of the venue. And we have our brewers who come to it and they pour the beer directly and they're there to talk to the people, which isn't the case in every state. We changed a law that enables our brewers to pour it at our festivals and only our festivals so that you are talking to the people who make the beer. And so I think focusing on differentiation is something we will continue to have to do. Our second festival was 614. It used to go along with Columbus Craft Beer Week, which we had our last Columbus Craft Beer Week last year and decided not to do that again this year. And that one, we moved venues to the Ohio History Center and ticket sales were definitely softer on that one. Is it because we're still coming out of the pandemic? Is it because we moved locations? Was it a ticket price issue? We don't know, and we'll continue to examine those things. But I don't think it's all doom and gloom for beer festivals, especially not for the guilds, because I think we put on a different level of festival.
I think festivals are kind of a love-hate thing. I mean, I actually enjoy when there's a moment that lasts about an hour and a half in a 3 or 4 hour festival where, like, I'd rather be no place else. Like, everyone's settled in, everyone's in, and people are they're not rushing, and I see brewers interacting with each other, people trying other things, including industry people. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't know we're going to be here. I'm going to try their stuff. That's a wonderful time. But at the heart of it, again, not like other industries, those are fundraisers to keep our organization alive. The distributors don't do these kinds of things to keep their trade organization alive. I often say if the orthodontic surgeons of Arizona don't rent a park and put a bunch of chairs out there and say, hey, $60 and we'll do all the work we can get done in 3 hours. I know a lot of breweries don't like festivals of this type. If we could change the due structure so we didn't have to do festivals and our festival would basically be our office party, it would be awesome. But that's not where we're at right now. And I don't know what gets us out of that box. But in the meantime, I think we have some brand confusion. Like, we only do 3 marquee festivals. We have some partner events, but we're very selective. But there's dozens in their state. And I can't tell you how many times someone says, hey, man, went to your event. I'm like, that's not our event. And sometimes it's a brewery. And I'm like, you didn't see me there, so it's not our event. And we got into this late. I mean, there were 2 festivals that have finally now ceased operations that predated us by 5 years. So, we we try to do different things to set ourselves apart. And that's why sometimes we had an indoor festival that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on only to make $20,000-$30,000. Like, it was ridiculous, but It was important at the time because we wanted to establish that we could be a host city for this CBC. And we wanted to make sure that the city location that we were using went through all the, because they hadn't had a festival there in 30 years. So it was like politically important. But again, we do festivals for different reasons than just making money. I mean, some of them we have to make money on, obviously, but we've rehoused or rehomed or put in a different time frame every one of our festivals. So before the pandemic, things were happening year over year in the same spot. We've changed all that, and we took some lumps, but there's no today if there wasn't all those changes in the last couple of years. So the struggle for festivals is all the stuff that people don't see. But I think we could do a better job of right sizing some of our festivals, and the degrees of freedom I have to say, you know what, tomorrow we're not selling any tickets because I want to focus on the experience. Like, I get to do that all the time. So like when we say it sells out, like it sells out because I say it sells out. And I don't want to try to rush a bunch of people in day of. It's not fair to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll build on what Rob said real quick too. I mean, I for us from the beginning, it's all, our festivals are unique. It's all New York State beer. And like with Mary's festivals, only the brewers pour the beer, or the brewery owners. So that makes them unique as well. But that doesn't really seem to be enough anymore. I think so. We've always been about, I've been preaching how breweries need to adapt. And I think so do we. So, our beer festivals we're making more experiential. It's just not enough to have 60 New York State breweries from all over the state, in Buffalo and Syracuse and Long Island and Albany. That's fine. That'll draw a certain number of tickets. But, for our Buffalo festival, at the outdoor festival, we have axe throwing, we have paintball, we have like games and things and music and just kind of upping it a little bit to make it more experiential instead of just 4 hours of drinking. And the venues that we choose are very important. You'll never find Pipe and Drape or a convention center in any of our things. We just have a beer festival in Long Island at the oldest German club in the Northeast, and it's a lager festival, and we've called it Das Bach. It's a cool venue. How
did I miss that?
It is so much fun, and it's experiential. It's just a different vibe. And again, it's kind of, to me, it's like I'm challenging my staff and ourselves to take our beer festivals of 10 years ago and do a 2.0 or 3.0 version of them to keep them relevant and to keep people coming.
So as you not even think about the next 10 years, but I know there's legislative focus. I know there's change focus. What is a cultural focus that you would like your member brewers to be thinking of over the course of the next year? Rob?
What is a cultural focus?
Yeah, I know you had mentioned hospitality before, but is there something else, that, to sort of get us back into that, this can be fun. This can be, yeah.
I think it's again, getting back to what appealed to us in this industry is getting together across breweries. I think we're the natural hosts for inviting distributors into conversations, retailers into conversations. I mean, we are that most of the places that we love, that you love, that we're proud of are considered third places where you go there alone, not to drink alone, and you just never know who you're going to run into. I think that's what we have to focus on. And I think I've been reading a lot about culture in general. And I think, during the pandemic, there was a lot of talk about like, well, you can't piss off 50% of your customer base. Well, I'm here to say you can. I'm here to say that you can draw circles around who you want to associate with. And if you make that very clear in your messaging, you can service who you want to service, and you can focus on what it is you want to do with that space. I think we in our state, because we have some people who are definitely competitive in the package and wide scale distribution market within our own state. There's no doubt about that. There is a future for a few more players in that zone, but for most of our taproom breweries, is taking control of space and again, just infusing inspiration from your peers.
Mary, what would you like to see over the course of the next year?
We continue to try to bring our industry people together. Our conference is a big time to do that, when they get to interact with people from around the state, because they've left their work back in whatever city or town they've come from, and they're there to focus and learn as an industry. We've got quarterly meetings that have always been fairly well attended. And then we added regional happy hours. So my staff and I take one day a month and we pick a direction. Okay, we're going to go visit the southeast corner of the state, and then set up 6 to 8 brewery visits to check in with our members, see how they're doing, see what their needs are. And then at the last stop of the day, we added a regional happy hour that literally anyone from around the state is invited to. If you want to get in your car and drive 1 to 4 hours, you can come join us at the happy hour. And just reinforce the reason we all got into this industry was the collaborative nature and the helpfulness of your fellow industry people. And that's really what we're focusing on, is like trying to get everybody to continue to have that less of a feeling of competition and more collaboration.
Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I think the message of, really encouraging breweries to be who they are, to adapt. We are doing more things, like Mary and other states, where I'm doing regional meetings every year. So we cover the whole state for 3 months, and we visit breweries and we have meetings. Our conference is growing every year, which is super important, for a lot of breweries to get together and not only learn, but to be together and it goes back to that therapy part and all of that, where they can all just get together and talk through their issues and continue to grow and stay the course. And also, and I'm going to go back to that word adapt. They need to adapt to this new world. Don't the old world of like, I'm going to get a wholesaler and I'm going to sell my beer, all around the state. Well, I'm hearing from breweries now in New York that wholesalers aren't taking any more breweries.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's not just in New York, but yeah.
Yeah. And so their access to market is you've got to look internally, start selling beer out of your tap room, be selfish. Don't find new ways to stay relevant. And we as a guild, that is our job. When you say the next year, the next 10 years, I think guilds are more important than ever right now through these times, because we're here for them. This is our job, right? Is to be there for them to pick up the phone, for us to create these events and create these experiences and these educational opportunities to keep them going, to have their backs. And so that's kind of really going to be our focus, in the next year. And hopefully, I don't know if I'll be in this chair in 10 years, but certainly the next several years, hopefully.
Well, I have kept you all three well past the time that I promised. And Mary, I know you have a staff meeting, and I apologize for making you late for that. So I will say that I hope all three of you will come back before 10 years from now to share the additional insights, and then I can ask you the green door question then. But Rob, Mary, and Paul, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. We look forward to having a beer with you again sometime soon.
And you're coming to Ohio in January.
I'm coming to Ohio in January. Sean Nordquist gets me first in Florida, but yes, it's
we're all pouring beer at GABF.
I will probably see you there.
Excellent.
But yeah, yes to all of the above. So thank you. Thanks to the three of you.
Thank you, John.
Cheers.
Thank you.
What's a change you've noticed in the last decade, and what would you like to see happen in beer? email me and tell me about it. It's John Hall. That's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com, or tell me on Twitter at John_Hall. That's also how you can get in touch with questions, comments, and guest suggestions. A reminder, go visit allaboutbeer.com. There you can check out the podcast page, the merch page, and can read great new content as well as the archives going back to 1979. Don't forget, you can also follow All About Beer on social media at All About Beer. Hey, we're even on Threads these days. And if you're interested in supporting journalism in the beer space, email us at info@allaboutbeer.com, or you can simply go to patreon.com/allaboutbeer. As promised, Caleb Schwecke of Yakima Valley Hops is back with me. The company is a sponsor of this episode, and we're talking about experimental hops. And earlier, we learned about HBC 1134, but now, Caleb, tell us about HBC 1019.
So HBC 1019 was another one that had a really good showing at CBC in Nashville this year. And for me, the first time I tried it, it's easily one of the most surprising hops. And I try a ton of hops and a ton of beer. And, there's always new varieties, but this is one of the few varieties where I just sat back and said, wow, because it's just huge, potent fruit flavors. You got some stone fruit in there, sweet fruit, tropical fruit. But then there's like some very unique, interesting stuff going on in the background. So two of the first breweries that sponsored acreage for 1019 was Reuben's Brews here in Washington State, and then Odell Brewing. So they were the first ones to be brewing with it the past couple of years. And some of them, depending on their usage, they started getting like some really like caramelized bananas. Some people described like a dark rum character. So there's like some really interesting like depth of flavor to it that just isn't present anywhere else. So it's an amazing hazy IPA hop. It can hold a beer completely on its own as a single hop. It also works well with other ones. So it's really surprising, and I just can't wait for it to get a full name and get released. And I think it's going to be stellar.
That's really cool. That's exciting to hear. And I mean, obviously a lot of those great fruit flavors are what I think brewers are looking for, because it's what drinkers are looking for. And when you can find one of those hops that really latches onto, I guess, the zeitgeist of our time, it's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to find a special place in the craft beer industry because brewers already like it. And, I think as consumers and beer drinkers get a taste of it, that's going to be one that they're going to start asking for by name once it has a name.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Caleb. We'll be on the lookout for that. And I'm going to encourage everybody to please go visit yakimavalleyhops.com. You can learn about HBC 1019, as well as the earlier mentioned HBC 1134, as well as everything else that the company has to offer. And my thanks to Yakima Valley Hops for supporting All About Beer. Also, if you plan on being in Colorado in a few weeks for the Great American Beer Festival, you need to check out the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. It happens on Friday, September 22nd, and it brings together 64 of America's best craft breweries, all for a great cause, the Pints for Prostates campaign. The beer list is incredible, packed with rare, exotic, and vintage beers you won't find anywhere else. These are legendary beers the breweries hold back just for the Denver Rare Beer Tasting. This is a bucket list event for both beer fans and for brewers. You can get a look at the beer list and find more information, including tickets, at pintsforprostates.org. All-inclusive tickets are just $200 and include unlimited beer samples, a great buffet lunch, t-shirt, tasting glass, and program. Money raised goes to the fight against prostate cancer, including a free health screening before the event. It's a simple blood test that checks for common health issues that might just save your life. That's the Denver Rare Beer Tasting, drinking beer and saving lives. Don't forget, All About Beer has a podcast channel. Just go search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. Listen to that show. It's a lot of fun. As for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday of this show, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.